So, a man in the US of A who had spent 20 years in prison because of murder is set to be released after his twin, known as Carl Smith, confessed to actually doing the crime, not him. Now, at this point in time, considering that he is called Smith, I'm gonna assume that both of them are called Smith. And from there, I'm just gonna say, you know what? Same old Smith, just a different... Actually, no, that's not how it sounds, does it?
Get ready for the battle of the sexes.
Alright, I get it. Yes, the song doesn't go that way, but I was gonna try and make it sound like, same old Smith, just a different day. But first of all, the man who was in prison, his twin brother, is actually not called Smith. His name is Kevin Dugar, or Kevin Duga. I'm not sure which one it's supposed to sound like. I just hope both of them are correct. But that aside, the guy had been serving 20 years, or at least he had done around 20 years, ever since, he was convicted in the year 2003 for the fatal shooting of a rival gang member. And now this is where the story starts to get interesting. Now, personally, when I was looking at this, I was like, these inmates are gonna be looking at it and they're like, ooh, we're getting some fresh new ass, same old pretty face, ha ha ha. And I was about to make the whole statement, same old Smith, just a different gay. Like, that was what I had planned on actually saying. Up until I actually read this story very, very well. Then I realized when this Carl Smith came forward, he was already serving a 99-year sentence for a home invasion that left a child shot in the head. Like, this man saw his twin brother who had been in prison for such a long time, and when this guy actually came forward about this issue, this was 2016. Like, this guy comes 13 years later and is like, you know what, I'm the one who did it, but he's already doing 99 years. If anything, I think he's just done the best thing to try and get his brother, to be set free, which is probably going to be tough for him, because imagine if they're in the same prison and the guys in prison have been used to raping the both of them. Like, they're pretty much gonna look at him and the first thing that they're going to say is, considering that there's one less twin here, you better be ready to give us twice the ass. Like, that's probably what I'd think all these inmates that are used to fucking the other brother or are used to fucking the both of them are gonna think. Although, considering that this man, one, killed a rival gang member in 2003, supposedly, and has also been involved in a home invasion, this guy might actually know how to protect himself a little bit. So, if anything, I think these guys are probably gonna get a lot less ass. Although, then again, I do not really know much about prison life, just the same way I don't know about doing 99 years in prison. But what I do know is how to make noise on a podcast, which actually reminds me that I should have actually started this podcast right about now. And I usually like to start in my very typical fashion, where I start by saying, welcome to Breaktime on West Side, your number one breaktime podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is a man who does not see the ass in twin, but I don't know, maybe those prisoners just might, with the other twin, and hopefully, they won't fuck that ass 2x. Just saying. He's a man who believes in jumping to conclusions as a form of cardio. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. The show is Battle of the Sexes, our weekly love, sex, and relationships show, where I get to make comments about, booty and twins and semen and shit. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people listen all the way till the end. Not everyone does, but I appreciate you all in all. And I usually like to welcome feedback as well as topic ideas, because some of these things, it's you guys that can actually push them to me. I can't find all the great topics. Sometimes you guys can recommend good ones. And if you do feel like you have a good topic that we should discuss on the podcast, that I should break down on the podcast, then the place to hit me up on is on IG, and the DMs are always open there. At Breaktime on Westside is the handle on IG, as well as Facebook. You can hit me up on at Breaktime on Westside. On Twitter, you can slide into my personal DMs, which is at Bagaka the D. And slide into the DMs there. The DMs there are always open as well. And I'd love to take what it is that you would want us to discuss. I'd like to take some of your thoughts into it, and maybe I might just turn them into topics here, which actually fuels what I'm just about to get to before we get to the main topic, because this was actually something that was sent by a fan. And interestingly enough, our main topic of today, which I will get to in a little bit, was also sent by the same fan. So, I like to give a little bit of fan love. Winnie, I'm sure you're listening to the podcast right about now. Mad shout out to you. But let me just get to this quick story before I get to the main topic of today. Now, Nick Cannon, the brand ambassador for the book of Genesis, where God says, reproduce and fill the earth, recently came out on live TV to actually talk about some of the things that he does in the bedroom and some of the things that he can allow and can't allow in the bedroom. Now, he was doing the show with a couple of other men, and there was even one medical professional in there. And I am going to play the clip for you so that you can hear from his own mouth and, listen to some of the statements that some of the other guys had to say. The likes of The Situation, aka Mike Sorrentino from Jersey Shore, among other people. So I'm going to play for you guys the clip, then we'll just discuss it from there. So here it is.
You know what? I'm gonna be honest with this. If a woman wants to bring a toy to the bed, I see that as competition. Just me personally, I feel like I'm a pleaser, and if I'm not the one pleasing, I don't need another object in the room because I'm trying to be as sensual and as connected as possible. That to me is a distraction.
Oh,
That's honest.
man, that's good.
Planet versus the rabbit.
Yeah, that's a good point of view right there. I like that.
Planet versus the rabbit.
That is. I didn't think that I would hear that from you, but that was good.
Yeah. And I'm open to all
that.
types of things, but if it's something that is gonna bring you pleasure beyond what I can do, again, maybe that's an insecurity or something, but I don't want no competition.
Well, why feel bad? You bought it, so it's just different.
I paid for that, girl.
But
Enjoy what we do.
It's a real issue, and it comes up a lot in therapy, right?
Yeah.
And so, ladies, you got to be careful because this is tricky. You want him to take instruction and not take offense. So you can't tell a man what he's not doing right in the bedroom and not hurt his feelings, so you got to do it the other way. You got to Jedi mind trick him, tell him what he's doing right, then tell him what this toy is going to help him do even more.
And then
right.
I hear that because my question is, and it feels like toys are a one-sided thing. Like the toys are kind of the business is to please the woman.
Right.
Are there any toys out there that help men?
Yes.
I've never.
Yes, a lot.
Alright, cool. Now, you've heard what he's had to say, and first of all, I'm going to come out to at least, be happy that he tried to speak up for the guys, and, he was asking about toys that can be used for guys and shit, and, that's a really good thing that he decided to do. Like, he thought about the guy side for once. People rarely ever do that when they're on TV. Now, that aside though, let me just get to what it is that he said. He expressed his displeasure in a woman using toys in the bedroom when he's there. And, he made a pretty valid point. And I think a lot of guys do feel that way. But there was this statement, actually, it was from some video that I saw online. Actually, no, it wasn't a video. It was actually an image, I think. And the caption was like on top. And what was said was, maturity is realizing that her toys are your teammate, not your enemy. And it was some guy who was down there who was, I think, either talking about it or some shit. And it actually does make sense. For me, personally, I don't mind using toys in the bedroom. Like, I think they can spice things up and make shit a lot better for the babe. And, evidentially, it can make the sex better for you. But the way I read the comments on this entire thing, the way I spoke to people about it, and, there were guys that were talking a bit of crap about how Nick Cannon is and shit. Like, honestly, I feel like this kink of using toys in the bedroom just isn't for him. Like, I can totally get how it just isn't for him. Just the same way there's babes that do not like the idea of giving head. And guys as well who do not like the idea of giving head. Like, other people might be like, oh my goodness, it's such a great thing. That's when you have the most power, blah, blah, blah. There's no better way to make a woman feel like she's in control and shit. Oh, pleasure and everything. But the truth of it is, there's some kinks that just aren't for everyone. Actually, most kinks aren't for everyone because everyone's made different. So the assumption that every guy is going to like head isn't necessarily true. The assumption that every girl wants to be eaten out or every guy should love eating a girl out because, that's when you make her feel special and she feels great and she has pleasure and shit isn't actually a particularly true thing. And I'll even give you an example of something. Now, personally, I wouldn't mind if we're in the bedroom and the shorty wants to give herself pleasure as I watch. Like, I personally wouldn't mind that. But now if the shorty was to turn around and be like, pleasure yourself while I'm here and I watch, I'd actually have a problem with it. Not just because I might be shy on one end, but normally whenever I see a babe in the room, my capability to jerk off kind of goes out the wind, because I'm like, why should I jerk off when she's there? Like, I'm not trying to turn the woman into a tool or anything, but why do it if she's there? Like, that's just how my thought process works, which is why I probably won't do it. Now, it's sort of the same way if you can see a babe and she has her toys and she wants to give herself pleasure, you're like, then give yourself pleasure with that. Then what do you need me for? But in reality, on some people's side, they might be like, you know what? I can use this to enhance the entire experience. Maybe while I'm hitting it from the back and I know for a fact that, I'd like to play with her clit and say maybe my hand can't stay in that position for very long, or I can't do it for as long as she'd want to, I can just get the toy and just position it there very well, and I can get the job done. And I can get shorty to have like her maximum pleasure and shit. And those two people do exist. Now, the question is, does it mean that, just because one doesn't particularly like what the other is doing or isn't a fan of what the other is doing, make them supposedly wrong or quote unquote immature as per the post in the caption? Not necessarily. Truth of the fact is, everyone's different, and some kinks are going to work with some aren't going to work with others. So sometimes you just need to accept that, that's them and that's what it is that they like. Maybe they don't understand it, and if they did, they'd love it, but maybe on the other hand, they just won't like it at all, even though they understand how it can be used to your benefit. And that's that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the guy is going to be a shit fuck for it. Like, with all the kids and with all the babes that he's managed to get pregnant, I can't exactly say that he's going to be shit at the job. Clearly, there's more than enough babes I wouldn't mind him fucking, even despite such a thing. But anyways, that said, we should move it on to our main topic of today. And interestingly enough, considering that the main topic is actually from the same person, I'm not going to give the shout out again. I already gave it at the beginning, but it actually relates to another video. And it was actually a commentary video that was done on an interview that Joey Badass, the rapper, had done on the Lip Service podcast, I believe, where he spoke about how he doesn't want to ejaculate during sex, and instead of busting a nut, he'd rather preserve his life force and his energy and shit. Now I'm gonna play it for you, and I kid you not, there's a lot here to unpack. So y'all know the drill. I play, I discuss, come to a conclusion and shit. So I'm just gonna play it for you. So here it is.
All right, so let's talk about this right here. I feel very proud of Joey Badass for going on the Lip Service podcast and sharing the fact that he practices semen retention and can still experience orgasm and pleasure without coming. He wants to retain his life force energy and all the nutrients that go into creating and procreating in life. But some of the hosts of Lip Service said that they would feel offended if their partner did not ejaculate when having sex, which really points to just how attached women are to a man coming, because they only know of one way a man can experience pleasure and orgasm. And it's attached to the idea that his pleasure or him producing seed is a sign of proof of your sexual prowess, which actually isn't true. So let's talk about it. Do women place extra pressure on men to show up and perform a certain way?
Okay. First of all, how do I break this? I think I'll deal with the women's side first, because ladies first. Then I can move on to the whole guy side and semen retention and shit. Because I do know that there is quite a lot to unpack there. But I'll actually even start by answering the question that she ended this clip with, which was whether guys actually have pressure to show up and perform and shit for the woman. And the truth is, yes, we do have pressure every single time. Like, I will say this, whether it is a one night stand, whether it's someone that you've been fucking for 10 years, whether it's your wife, like, you have that pressure as a guy. You have to perform. Like, that's sort of how it's been for us ever since porn kind of took off, and the idea of having a big dick and hitting it until she can't get up has been a thing. like ever since porn kind of influenced pop culture and how society looks at the ideas of sex and shit, your ability to perform as a man has always come into question. Plus, also, if you look at some of the older cultures, especially in cultures that are very embracing towards, matters that relate to the conjugal arts, like some of the Rwandese tribes, like you find that you pleasing a woman, you pleasuring a woman is like a requirement as a man, to the point where you can actually call a family meeting, or at least the woman can call a family meeting and claim that you're not doing the job right. But anyways, that's besides the point. That one was just a quick yes, it happens for us guys. It's a very common thing. And it's sort of there with us as is. But now to look at where the women's side comes in. Women receiving validation from getting a guy to nut, or at least, from making him orgasm and nut and come. Yes, it does actually exist. For those of you all that are wondering if such a thing exists, yes, they do get validation from it, and it's not even like on a conscious level. It's more of a subconscious thing, because there's the whole idea of the hero myth for a lot of us, and the guy's hero myth is clearly seen in action movies and shit. Like in a lot of contexts in media, you'll see it happen, and even with the women's hero myth, it's there. The only thing is people don't know how different the hero myth for the woman is different from the man. Now, essentially, the hero myth for the woman is usually taming the beast that is within the man, or that is the man. And you'll find that time and time again in fairy tales like Beauty and the Beast, which I think is the best representation of it. Then you look at cases of TV series. We have Vampire Diaries, we have the Twilight Saga, we have Teen Wolf, we have the originals. Like, there's a reason why they all sell so well and the characters appeal so much to women, because it fulfills that hero myth. Because most times you'll find that the woman isn't in the same way powerful or a monster in the same way the guy is. Like, that is a thing. It is a thing. Now, when you bring reality back into the mix of this, series aside and everything, what's the best way to tame the so-called beast of a guy there? When you make a guy nut, doesn't he become docile? Doesn't he, become a lot more chilled? Isn't it considered to be one of his most vulnerable moments? Like, side chicks have managed to get so much just because they ask for shit right after they've made the man nut. Like, that shit happens time and time again. And hell, this entire idea of the hero myth is actually a part of the reason why dangerous men, why assholes, why people that are considered to be monsters or disgusting people to a certain degree will always have a couple of women that they can go ahead and they can smash, and those women might even stick with such people. And considering that the idea is to tame the beast, there's so many babes that are very comfortable that get off from the fact that they've made their man nut, that they've made a man nut. Like, there are some who will not orgasm themselves but be very comfortable because they are making their man, or they're making the man that they wanted to sleep with actually orgasm, because they have tamed the man. Because most times for us guys, we'll bang, we'll nut, and then we'll pretty much like turn around and sleep, or we'll hold and act like teddy bears, or we'll cry and shit, like depending on the man. The point is, we have been tamed. We, the so-called beasts, have been tamed, and as a result, her hero myth has been satisfied. Now, that should take care of the babes. Now, on to the guys. Can guys actually orgasm without coming? Kind of the same way Joey Badass has been talking about it. Well, I can tell you for a fact that it's not bullshit, and yes, guys actually can orgasm without coming. Like, we don't have to come, we don't have to spill fluid out for us to actually orgasm. It is actually possible for us to do it. It's just that it's not something that's very, very common for a lot of us guys. Like, even I got to know about the idea of having an orgasm and not nutting from Twitter a couple of weeks back, where some guy was actually talking about the idea of a pelvic orgasm, which is very possible. And he spoke about the technique of like, just as you're about to nut, or when you're nutting, I don't know, like you place your hand and you cover like the bottom part of the penis, and you like hold it tightly, and like the cum won't come out, blah blah blah, but you'll still have the sensation that you've actually orgasmed and shit. And he was actually talking about you continuing to go on with sex even after you hit orgasm. But the whole premise of it still does make sense. then the idea of preserving the nutrients and the life force energy, when you do such a thing, also does have some premise. It is something that a lot of physical trainers have spoken about for decades. It's something that was being discussed, years, decades ago. It's something that you'll hear boxers will do. Even during the World Cup, footballers were being told to do such a thing. Like, it's something that's said for such a long time. It's something that's been practiced and believed a lot. Also, Steve Jobs also did believe in something similar. He believed in the idea of coitus interruptus, which is essentially supposed to be considered the pull-out game. But in this case, you're not pulling out and nutting. You're just pulling out and you're stopping just before you hit that final climax and orgasm. And there is premise for a lot of this, at least in terms of belief. But that said, is the idea of semen retention, which is exactly what it is that's being practiced here, particularly beneficial? Truth is, not necessarily. Like, at least if you look at some of the things that are being spoken about here, it's not necessarily that beneficial, because the so-called life force energy that's there, if you say is going to be there incoming, if you wear a condom and you release it, it's still not going to the babe. So in terms of quote-unquote life force, which is your sperm, it still doesn't really go there. So if you wear a condom, or if you say got a vasectomy and still went raw, it essentially wouldn't have gone to the babe. Now, if you're relating it to the energy alone, the people who believe in the transference of energies, especially when it comes to sex and how, people mix up energies and soul ties and shit, they'll probably tell you for a fact that once you guys have sex, those energies kind of, will be shared and shit. So whether you're doing it and not coming, or you are doing it and you're coming, it's probably still going to happen. Or at least that's how I see it, as far as my logic and those beliefs go, because essentially that's how it's supposed to be. Because it's not like, oh, when you have sex with someone, you guys share energies and transfer different energies, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, you have to make sure you don't nut, otherwise they don't transfer. Like, it doesn't make sense when you say that. Although also I do tend to question the people that talk about that, because most times when they're talking about those energies, they only ever relate to the negative ones. Like, how comes you haven't given me the positive energy that allows me to attract money and shit? Like, that's the energy that some of us are probably looking for, and people are busy talking about transferring negative energy. Like, you get my point. But that aside, let's even look at the other things that people talk about, the quote-unquote nutrients that you lose when you have sex and you ejaculate. Well, truth of the matter is, and this is something that I did kind of do my fair share of research back when I was doing quite a lot of working out, it's actually not necessarily a bad thing if you nut. Like, yes, you will lose the nutrients, but your body will replenish that shit in a couple of minutes, hell, a couple of hours even. Like, it's something that your body is going to do, because your body works sort of autonomously to a certain degree, such that if it realizes that one side is lacking something, it'll try and provide for it in one way or another. Now, this is something that was actually, brought into question a lot when it came to like athletes and, whether boxers should refrain from sex for like 6 weeks before they go out and like do their challenges and like have their matches and shit. And it was actually discovered from actually quite a bit of research that your testosterone levels as a guy, yes, they will kind of increase the more you don't have sex, but after about 7 days, that shit actually goes back down to normal and might even go below what your earlier level was when you decided to do the whole semen retention and I'm not having sex and shit. Because your body is going to be autonomous. Your body is going to be as efficient as possible. So if it realizes that you need more testosterone because you've used it up, then it'll replenish it. If it realizes that you have so much testosterone that you aren't using up, then it'll take it away and it'll leave you with enough that you need to survive on, because you clearly don't need that much testosterone. So in terms of nutrient value, that shit's still coming back. Like that testosterone that you're trying to hold dear to you, those minerals that you're seemingly holding dear that you don't want to let go of, they're going to be taken away by the body, or at least they'll be repurposed by the body onto something else. But it's not like it's going to be there and it's not going to stay at its high point for very, very long, because the body has to be efficient, because it's not like it's going to have all of these nutrients all the time. And even though it does, it's still going to be efficient with it. Now, That said, I will say that for someone who was speaking about creativity, the Steve Jobs type, because that's why he used to practice that shit, I can't really say much about creativity. But I can say that for a lot of people who will jerk off, for a lot of people who will do a bit of Five Alive here and there, you'll realize that you're very low on energy at times, or at least you might not be as active after sex or after jerking off, and it might hinder your ability to perform by a little bit. It doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't have sex or jerk off, before you do anything, but it's better to try it out for yourself and see if it can work, and then see if it's something that'll affect you or not. But the truth of it is, it's not like it'll hinder everyone, and there's some people that have actually adapted to certain practices that will allow them to do that and continue. Say if they always jerk off before they go for a performance or some shit just to relieve stress and everything, and they manage to function pretty damn well. So all in all, it still does come back down to how your body is made up and how you can adapt shit to its advantage, even though some things might actually not really seem that easy to change. But all of that said, let me just conclude, because time and everything, and back to what Joey Badass does, for the guys at least. Semen retention is actually a choice. Like, it's entirely a choice of yours, and whether you choose to do it or you don't, at least the science shows that it's not necessarily a massive game changer for you if you're looking at it in terms of whether it'll stunt your ability to work out. It might affect your confidence, hair loss and shit. It's perfectly okay. Like, whether you choose to keep it or you engage in sexual activity on a daily or you don't, thing is, your body is going to respond to how you treat it and work in the most efficient way to provide for what it's lacking or what it requires the most. So all in all, semen retention is more of a belief system rather than something that's particularly backed by science. But that said, that thing that I said about the babes and the whole, taming the beast, it is true for quite a lot of them. Yes, there are some babes who've kind of tuned that out of them, but it is true for most. And regardless of whether she's a dominatrix or she's the type to just let you fuck the way you want to, it all still comes back down to that same exact hero myth. They are taming the beast. So if it's a dominatrix, she'll probably do that a little bit differently, such that she'll tame the beast using control, and the other one will tame it with just pure pleasure. But all in all, it still comes back down to that same exact thing. Although, then again, I might be completely wrong about this shit, and everything that I've said might just be nonsense, so I want your thoughts on this. The DMs are open on IG, it is at Breaktime on Westside. On Facebook, it is also at Breaktime on Westside. And on Twitter, you can slide into my personal DMs, which is at Bagaka the D. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and if you are listening through Castbox, feel free to drop your thoughts and comments below, and I will attend to them accordingly, and I will catch you guys on the next break.